The Sustainable Voice, bringing you big successes from small places worldwide.
Welcome back to Sustainable Voice. This is Ashish, and I have got my brother from Colombia, Abraham, with me. I've been dying to get you on this show, man. What's up, bud? What's going
It's
on?
I first off, thank you for having me. What a privilege! What a privilege to be on your podcast. Very cool.
Yeah, there it is. There it is right there. For those of you who don't know, this is my long lost brother. We look alike, don't we? I mean, we share so many facial similarities. For those of you who know Abraham, know how close he is to me, to my family. He is him, his wife, his new beautiful babies, they're part of our family. It was during the pandemic that we got really close together, isn't it? Those of you who don't know, Abraham was instrumental in getting so many people who were hungry, who were going hungry, who were being left out of the equation, to get them fed during the pandemic, to get them help, to be able to sustain, to keep a roof over their head. We even delivered a bed at one point. That was live streamed too.
I think we delivered quite a few beds. I think one or two beds, but quite a few cribs.
Quite a few
We did do
cribs.
quite a
Yeah,
few
it was
cribs.
it
Yeah,
was honestly, you're a hero in my house. I
yeah.
credit people this too. I credit people this too. My son, part of his essay getting into university, I think you're responsible for him getting into his dream school. I got to tell you, I think you are.
It was the flip flops thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the shoes. Well, you gave him control of the Navy to go delivering shoes. I mean,
Yeah.
he hasn't shut up about that.
Yeah. So here's the little background from it. During the pandemic, we're thinking about needs other than just food. Food's great or whatnot. Food ends. It runs out. And then Shiv, he was the one that was thinking about like shoes. Shoes would be something great to donate, but it'd be very difficult to find, thousands of pairs of shoes to donate. And then the sizing and everything else would be complicated. So we were able to reach out to the Dian. So the Dian is kind of like the IRS here in Colombia, and they seized a contraband of flip flops. That had like the high end like Adidas and Nike and
Yeah.
like all this other like fake product stuff. And we were able to kind of get a hold of those things to donate instead of getting it destroyed. And what was interesting about it was that Shiv was kind of like, I told him, was like, what do you want to take this? And he gave an area that, he mentioned an area that, well, I mean, it's not wealthy, but it was definitely not poor. So then I started kind of showing him this image of like extreme poverty and what it looks like. And he was the one that chose where to take these. And
I
we went door to door to every family, just giving them flip flops. And
and I
it
I
was all his
love
idea.
the line you said to him, because we were talking about the location and you went and you said, well, we could do that, but you'd be sending the entire country's Navy to this location, which
Oh,
means
yeah.
we would basically be completely unprotected.
Yeah.
And so I kind of looked at him and I said, yeah, well, did you have that on your bingo card? Or somebody would say that to you at any point?
Yeah.
So it was, well, this is great segue. As those of you, I mean, you're listening right now to all of our listeners. Welcome to the show. You can obviously see that Abraham and I are very close. We are brothers, separated. I want to say at birth, but from separate mothers, separate fathers too. But we see the world the same way. I don't know that I know as many people that see the world as closely as you and I do. It's almost like the same lens. I think we share contact lenses. So that could be part of it too. So we're going to be talking about this today. Let's talk about Colombia. Colombia is special to me. It's obviously special to you. It's been special to me since I first met you. I've known you now for going on 15 years, I think, close to it. It's one of the most misunderstood countries globally, and it
Yeah.
still is. Tell me why that is. Why is it so misunderstood?
Let's face it, we have a pretty dark path. So originally, of course, people heard Colombia, and Colombia was just associated with drugs, with cocaine. That's what
Yeah.
it was. It was Colombia and cocaine. That's what we were known for, given the Escobar days, etc. I mean, to think he came from the city of Medellin, the nickname the Killer's Cradle. I mean, hey, let's go on vacation. Oh, I know, we should go to the Killer's Cradle. Like, I mean, it's not really something that kind of generated for tourism. But yeah, we did have a violent past, and it's not something that we try to kind of. It's not something we hide, but it is something that we do try to strive to kind of keep going forward, to get over to doing better, uh, to kind of go beyond that, and then show that Colombia is much more than what at one point was just drugs.
Well,
I mean, Colombia is beautiful. It has culture, it has food, it has people. But I mean, of course, you're not going to hear about this amazing dish, the mote queso that you enjoy first on TV. No, you're going to hear about the drugs, unfortunately. But
well,
it has changed a lot, and it's going to keep changing.
100%. And I tell you, so evidence of this is where you're sitting right now. I mean, the room, it's a baller room, man. That's like something out of Dungeons and Dragons. That's a seriously baller room.
Yes, yeah. So this is one of the rooms I use for my rum tastings, where we try just really weird random rums that like are no longer available. I mean, we have some finalizados. They stopped making those. They stopped making this quite a few years ago. I know you like the
I
boteros.
do like that one.
We have some limited editions that are only like 5 ever made, and rum in porcelain bottles, and some and some rums we get to drink straight out of the barrels, which is kind of fun every time we get to do that.
Well, and you can see he's got some pretty cool mood lighting in that room too, as you guys can see. So this is interesting because this is part of it, right? So this room itself is a great example of the fact that Colombia is misunderstood. As you said, people don't see past, they don't see norm, right? So that was the main thing. They don't
Mhm.
see past that area in terms of in terms of what the past is, and they don't see what's happening. So take Cartagena for example, right?
Yeah,
Cartagena is where all the cruise ships come in. It is basically the main. I wouldn't say the main port of entry, but it is the most well known, right? I mean, Bogota
yeah.
obviously for different reasons, but Cartagena is the most well known. Abraham, dude, talk to us about your connection to the city. Cartagena is like the vibrant gateway to Colombia, but you got a connection to the city. Let's talk about that.
I do have quite a connection. So my father, of course, he's from the city, a former lawyer, VP at Blackstone in New York.
Big
One time he
wig.
got fed up with all the corruption and all the nastiness that was happening within the government here in Cartagena that was really oppressing, keeping the poor poor. So he just randomly decided to run for mayor. And it was something that was not, completely thought through per se on our part. We were like, sure, Dad, run for mayor. And of course he won. And that just, so he was the former mayor of, Cartagena, till 2 years ago, focusing mainly on, things such as corruption, which is just running fragrant here. And that's kind of how I got connected. That's a big connection, which I'm sure is something that we're going to be getting into this podcast.
Well,
But
your dad's a
I grew up
badass, by
right
the
here.
way.
Yeah,
Your
yeah, he
dad's a
he is.
badass, by the way.
He's totally a badass. He is.
Well,
I
and you
can't
grew
I
up
can't say
there.
say it elsewise.
No, look, you grew up there, but I remember so you remember when we were sitting in his office.
Hmm.
So guys, I had the pleasure of meeting Abe's dad. I had the pleasure of meeting the mayor of Cartagena. Although it was amazing because I took one of our guides up to Vicky up to meet him, and she was starstruck when she was giddy, like, can I get a photo? Can I get a photo? Can I get this? And he would show up every time. He'd be at your restaurant. He'd basically be there. And I remember I was in the room with you when he sat there in front of his laptop just on a Sunday or whatever day it was, just calling out all the different utilities and everybody who's basically how much money they stole. And this is how much they took. He was just going through, just sat there.
Oh
And
yeah,
I
yeah.
was sitting there watching, going, what a badass. That's amazing.
Yeah. Oh, he will call him out. Usually you'll hear something, you'll think it through before you talk. Yeah, he doesn't do that.
Hey, so can he run for Congress?
He can, and he's thought about it. He is kind of getting older.
Wait, are we launching his campaign on this podcast? Come on, tell me we are. Tell
No,
me we're
no,
launching his
no,
campaign
no, no,
here.
no, no. No, he is getting older, and it is
Yeah.
getting more difficult. So he accomplished a lot while it was his term, but unfortunately, corruption is still quite rampant.
Yep.
So the former or the historic politicians, the same families that have just kind of run politics like a mafia for years. um, they're doing very strong work as far as trying to get the legal system against him. So I'll give you an example. So COVID tests. We had COVID come out, and he was trying to buy the COVID test, and they were $4 more than what it usually costs, but they were the only places to get it. So he tried to purchase it, and now he's getting in trouble for buying pharmaceuticals at a cost superior to what it is, and it's a big mafia. Just anything to
Yeah.
kind of control the media.
Well, this talks
But
about.
it's
I mean,
it's it's it's
go ahead.
it's
Sorry,
very
man.
difficult. I mean, he had wonderful intentions, and he would have loved to have done a lot more. But he kind of taught me you always have to keep fighting corruption. I don't want to say I gave up. I'm giving up, but I'm saying it's a lot easier to say it than to actually do it. To do the right thing is what most people in their mind want to do the right thing, obviously. But the few people that don't want to do the right thing, they want to do it so much more passionately. I'm not even sure where I'm going with this.
No, it's the
That
same. Look, it's the same problem here.
Yeah.
We did an earlier episode about elections in Uganda because I was actually in Uganda when they had
Mhm.
their elections there. They turned off the internet in the whole country for a week. They gave us 3 hours notice and just turned it off. You want to see what anxiety looks like? Try not having internet or any kind of connection for a week. Nothing, no email, no text, nothing. Try having anxiety for a week. That's what it looked like. That's the crazy part. So, when you start
Kids would
looking at
actually
this,
kids would actually have to go outside and play, something you don't see
yeah,
very often
seriously.
nowadays.
Well, in all fairness, I was actually sitting at the very top of a hill where the hotel was, and I think I was stealing internet from a neighboring country. But we won't talk about that right now. We'll leave that alone. But okay, so with what your dad's saying, and I mean, and part of what we talked about in that episode was the fact that before any country or any developed nation in the world, anybody who's an established democracy, before any of them start calling out Colombia, they should look in the mirror because last time I checked, their hands are pretty dirty too. But this, what your dad, the fact that your dad won as mayor, that says something about the democratic process in Colombia. That says something about where it used to be and where it came from. So talk to us. How do elections actually work? I know besides beyond the voting aspect, from the presidential level, because we have a presidential election coming up, there's parliamentary elections happening right now. How does it work at different levels? What does that look like, and what do the terms look like? How does the voting process look like?
Okay. So for presidential elections, it's where it gets really interesting. I wish more countries would adopt this. So usually, in the U.S., you have two main. Yeah, I mean, you have two candidates.
Yeah.
And usually ends up being like the left or the right. I think the only like person that wasn't the partisan left or right. I want to say was Lincoln, but I'm not 100% sure.
Correct. Correct. He was one party, then independent and whatnot. That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Oh, look at that. Me, the Colombian knows about. Okay. No, so it's very interesting. So instead of just having two can, I mean, you can have 20 candidates. It doesn't matter. The thing is, uh, once the voting has been done, the winner is only announced if they got 51% of the votes.
Oh, so there's a runoff.
So exactly. So since if there's not 51% of the votes, and there usually isn't, then you go towards a second election. That's, I believe, a couple weeks later.
And there's been a lot of debate in this country about the electoral college.
Mhm.
What the popular vote versus the electoral college. What you're talking about isn't just the popular vote. You're talking about 51% of the votes. What happens if there's that's four candidates, and this is what's happening in a couple of countries right now. But like in Denmark, it's happening right now. What happens if you have multiple candidates that have each? How does that work? How does what's the cutoff? Let's say you have 20 candidates. How do they pare that down to three, two, one? How do they do that?
So it all gets essentially every party is going to have their whole bunch of candidates. And within those parties, you can have the consult is what they call it. So you can vote for somebody from the consult. So out of these 10 people from one party, you could say, I want this guy. So then this party's representative is going to be this guy. And then every party can do the same. But then when it comes time to election, so assuming we still have, we went from 1,000 to 10 different people. which of course at this point you're going to know who the strongest are because of the random polls, etc. Uh,
Mm,
Once people vote, either one person wins if there's 51 if that person got 51% of the total votes, or if it's that person got less than 51, then it's the top two people go for a round two, which is a couple weeks
okay.
later usually. So
Okay.
the advantage that gives us is usually a lot of people, particularly in the US, they like to vote either for their party or for whoever they think is less bad.
Right. Right. The lesser evil.
Yeah, the lesser evil. So here you actually get a little bit more of an opportunity that first time around.
Yeah, and it's part of the Constitution there too, right? In terms of this entire process, it's written into the Constitution, so meaning it can't just be undone because somebody feels like it. You've had presidents who've tried to extend terms and they can't because it's because of what's
Yeah.
written in there. So there are safeguards in place for all this, which is
Hmm.
fantastic. This is interesting because I agree with you fully, right? I mean, have some sort of a runoff. I know in the US we have primaries and we have elections. We saw, not to get political, but we saw what happened last election when you don't have primaries, when you don't actually have the full, in our country, it's the primaries and then the runoff from there. But you're talking about not one runoff, but several different parlays where you're weeding down until you have a final runoff. So it's not just one primary. It's like almost having two or three separate primaries.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And it really does give better opportunities. Now, I will say, even though we have all these different things, it was not always taken into consideration as much as it is now. So formerly, when we were back in those very dark kind of drug days that Colombia was known for, that's when we had a president called Alvaro Uribe, just extreme right, just kind of come in and with his militia, kind of got rid of a whole lot of the guerrilla violence, cocaine, etc. So yeah, he did do, in my opinion, in his first term anyway,
Mhm.
he did do a good job, but because he was right wing, then what happens is they started saying we got to follow this right wing ideology. So we kept getting like kind of the same lines or the people that he would say should kind of keep going. But what happened was, yeah, we got rid of lots of violence, we got rid of gangs, we got rid of a whole bunch of stuff. But because we kept so right, poverty just kind of kept increasing because I mean everything kind of went, pro businessman, pro, building this versus taking care of those little guys. So finally, we have a president that's left on the left or Democrat after many years. But the problem with that is since we went right for so long, and since they were screwing over the little guy for so long, this guy's going to try to compensate.
And go too far left.
Petro, the current president, he tried to compensate. And now people are like, yeah, let's stay with Petro. And then following the elections are coming up soon, and the left wing is just really going up all the way. But we need to try to find that balance.
Right.
So in the US, you could be left or you could be right. But the beautiful thing is that there's been a combination of both. And that brings a certain amount of stability to the country. That you're not
Right.
always kind of gunning for this or for that. So here it is getting a little dangerous from that standpoint.
Right. Where you're going, the pendulum is swinging further and further in either direction.
Yeah, yeah, and that's one thing I'm gonna admire, particularly about the American voter, is that they realize that everybody does need to get a chance. I mean, there's hardcore Republicans and there's hardcore Democrats, but
Right.
there's all these people that are in the middle who
Right.
just think, hey, let's go for this or let's go for that, versus just kind of staying treating politics like it's a sport,
Right.
like you go for your team, which is something
Right.
I really do admire about.
Well, and you spent a good amount of time in the US as well when you were studying. You were in the US, your dad was
Mhm.
here, obviously. What I'm getting from this is that, yeah, you talked about the American voter, which I agree with you. The fact that there is an engagement. What I would say in this country, and this is statistically proven, is that the voter turnout has been declining in the US. The level of engagement has been declining because more and more of the population is starting to feel disenfranchised. And that's not, guys, by the way, you guys are going to go into the comments and say something about this. Just look it up. It's statistically proven. It's a mathematical
Yeah.
fact. You can see from the just the total number of votes cast for each election from the last 3 elections. Beyond that, though, that brings us to Colombia. How is voter turnout and voter engagement in Colombia?
Okay. So it is a little odd as far as presidency goes. It's been growing. It's most definitely been growing. And I believe it will still be strong this year as far as presidency goes. But it's because everybody is so passionate about that left versus right. The right really wants to get control back, and the left really wants to keep it left. So just so that you have a little bit of context of what somebody but might be feeling like. So the work week over there, I believe, is 40 hours, correct?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So over here, it was 48 hours.
No.
Okay. So this president cut it from 48 down to 44, and then next year it's going down to 42. So there's that. So obviously those guys, the lower income people, are very happy about that. That's less work. So there's one thing. The other thing is we have an overtime pay that just starts because it's late. So that usually started at 10 p.m. At past 10 p.m. I don't think you guys have that there.
Well, it depends. Certain sectors do.
Okay.
Certain sectors of the economy do have it, but it's basically anything over above the 40 hours.
Okay, so here anything that you do past 10 o'clock, now 7 o'clock, it's considered overtime. Anything past 7 p.m.
So yours is
And
time
then
based, not hours work based.
it's also hours based. And then additional to that, minimum wage went up 24%.
Wow,
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
amazing.
I know. So 24%, um more income, awesome. 4 hours less work a week, and then soon to be 6 hours less work a week. That's amazing.
Uh-huh.
And then that massive overtime that you can start getting, because most people, like particularly in the restaurant business, you're going to work past 7 p.m.
Right.
So all those things are just amazing pros.
Well,
So ultimately, you will be getting around 40% more income because of the addition of these three things. But what does that do? What does that do to the business owner?
right. What does
So
that do? That's a good question.
I voted for the left. I voted because I said people aren't getting paid enough more. There's way too much poverty. Okay. So what ends up happening is, yeah, all these things are amazing. They're going to help fight poverty. They're going to help people to get a real proper income, but it all just happened too fast. We went too
Right.
far on the left,
Right.
versus this is something that could have been done. And I agree it should be done, but it should have been staggered a little bit more, because that boom of anybody's economy, any business structure, if your payroll goes up 40%, you're in trouble.
Yeah,
And
exactly
that's
right.
affected lots of people, my colleagues a little bit more than myself, to be honest. But yeah, so they're going to want to keep it left, because that's amazing. If they got all that in one year, what are they going to get next year?
Yeah, that's right. It sets precedent. Well, and I'm going to come to your restaurant in a second, because I think your restaurant and the bar, the restaurant is one of the best examples of what Colombia really, really can be, and
Mhm.
what it's not shown. So let's talk about this real quick. I'm going to ask you two questions. One is
Please.
about the provincial elections, because we're in midterm season in the U.S., so we have midterm elections coming up this year. So we have our provincial elections this year. How does that play in? But then the second question is more controversial, and that's one you're the only guy that I would want to ask this to, because I think you'd have the best answer. So the first question is the local politics. How does the local politics impact this? Like your
Oh
dad's
boy.
position, or from the mayoral position, the governor position.
Unfortunately, local politics here is just rampant payment theft, etc.
Okay.
So I'll give you an example. There's like the local leaders, the small time guys. The guy
Hmm.
that says, I grew up in this block, the whole, like on the street my whole life. I know all my neighbors, and he's kind of like the local community guy. So a politician can go up to this local community guy, and he says, "Listen, man, you want to make some money? I need all your guys to vote for me. I'm gonna pay you X amount of money for you to give to them for every single vote I get. And on
Hmm.
top of that, if I win, you're gonna get a job. So you're gonna
No.
get to decide what's good." Yeah. So I mean, it sounds so beautiful and so romantic. It's like, I'm going to be able to receive, I'm going to give money to all my friends that live on my street. Additional, they're going to pay me money to do that. And I get to help, quote unquote, help my community because now I'm going to have a position within government. I mean, it all sounds so nice and so romantic,
It does.
when reality is, dude, you're buying an election,
That's right.
but
Wow.
it makes it sound so nice. What's the downfall? Doesn't
So
it sound nice?
it sounds amazing. It sounds too good to be true.
Yeah. So that's kind of the play role, where it
Well,
comes
so
to how to.
it's kind of opposite. It's kind of opposite from, let's say, Uganda. So in Uganda, much like other countries in Africa, the general election, the federal election for the country's leader, prime minister, president, whatever the case may be, president in this case in Uganda, there's less enthusiasm about that, partly because the outcome seems to be inevitable, that's
Mhm.
the one, and partly because there's buying campaigns, whatnot, and you don't have term limits there. You've got candidates who have been president, like in Uganda's case, for almost 40 years. Same guy's been president. But you're also talking about countries that haven't been democracies for very long, up until 60s and 70s. So they're not as established as a democracy like what Colombia is, for example. But this is where the misunderstanding comes in. It's opposite from there, but as you said, here the federal election counts more. And I think it's because of what you said, the fact that you have so many different runoffs. You have more candidates, and then you have more stages where people are knocked out. So there's more engagement on that side. And I think that's part of where this gets misunderstood. The second part of that question, though, is the more controversial one. It's the media. So right now in the news in the US, all the news is about the current president of Colombia and how there's the DEA has a file on him. His visa's been revoked for the US, and then all of a sudden he's having a conversation and he's being painted. The narrative is that he's being painted out as somebody, and again, regardless of party. But I have to ask, and I've said this before, Colombia becomes the whipping post for whenever there's any kind of instability in a region. It's for some reason Colombia becomes the whipping post for the media to say, well, this is what's happening here. Whereas the country has actually come such a long way. But what's true and what's not? What's real and what's not? Can you dispel some of those myths, the stuff that's in the news here about persona non grata versus what's really the case?
Okay, so there's quite a few things. So Trump, obviously super far right wing, Petro super far left wing, and they're just avid about kind of backing whatever teams that they're on, be left versus right versus wrong. So that kind of started the conversation. All right. Anything that has to do with extreme wealth is going to be on Trump's side. Everything that has to do with more like freedom and liberty, etc., is going to be a little bit more on Petro's side. So the media, the the media's always kind of had control as far as politics go,
Yep.
and they're always going to be a little bit more leaning towards one side than the other. But we currently have opposites. So in the US, most of the media is going to be slightly leaning more towards the left, particularly like all the talk shows, everything that you've kind of been seeing, which is entertaining, of course, but it is leaning more towards the left. Exception of Fox News and some other ones where you're just kind of like bonkers leaning towards the right. But it's very difficult to know who to believe to believe in the US when you're watching the news because everyone's partisan.
Yeah, that's right. You get three different answers for
But
any one question.
but but mainly they are leaning towards the left. While here in Colombia, the opposite happens with the media. So here the media leans to the far right.
Oh,
Now oh yeah, the media here in Colombia definitely leans to the far right. So here's the thing, in the US, I mean, you have 40 different channels of information. Here in Colombia, you might have five.
right,
And then those fives are run by five powerful families, with
right.
five powerful businesses all in their media. So they're not going to want something, from the far left. Like I mentioned, people's income just went up 40%. That's not good for rich people's bottom
Nope,
line
never
on the most
is.
part.
Never is. Never is.
But at the same time, it goes back to what I was saying before with the fact that they swing left and right. So here it went up 40%, which is just massive and drastic and
Sure.
harsh. In the US, income, even though minimum wage has not grown exponentially like it should,
Yeah, that's right.
it does steadily grow. So like I don't believe the United States is ever going to have something where the minimum wage is going to jump 20 to 40%.
I mean, there's
It's not
movements, but
sustainable.
I mean, it depends it depends what happens. But yeah, you're right. It goes in stages.
Yeah.
But there,
So it tends to vary quite a bit.
well, okay, so this is what we're learning from here is in Colombia, the general election, which is what's going to be happening coming up very soon. The general election is where people are more engaged. The system, the process of the election is one that actually should be studied by other democracies because it has more primaries, it has more stopping points, more exit doors for people that are weeded out. So everybody, you do get to choose. So the ideal voting system is having our voter block in terms of the strong middle, the strong independents, with your system of more primaries. That looks like it
Well,
would be the perfect voting system in the world.
no, and to think that we can, up to a point, I mean, we vote multiple times.
Right.
So, like in one of these current elections, like right now, there's different consultas, consults for different parties.
Right.
So you could actually vote for multiple people and say, in this party, I like this guy. In this party,
Mhm.
I like this, and keep kind of voting all the way through.
Because you have more parties represented. You have more parties represented. It's not two dominant parties. You have more parties
Yeah,
in
yeah,
on the parliamentary level.
exactly. Now, most of those parties are going to end up being on the left or the right
Sure, sure.
spectrum. There are some tentatively strong ones in the middle, but most of them are going to be left or right. But you really kind of do get an option to not go, for the pick that less evil on each party.
So I'm going to ask you a question, and this is my producers are going to kill me for this because I'm going off of their talking points completely. But it says something. How's the healthcare system in Colombia?
Oh, healthcare, to be honest, it's surprisingly good.
Okay, this is
Like, like,
proving a theory.
like surprisingly good. It's not
Okay,
perfect by any means. It's
no, no,
really
no.
not,
Look, it's
but it is
broken in the U.S.
surprisingly good. Oh yeah.
It's a
Oh
busted
my
system
goodness.
here.
Like 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 I got it like when I was in college in the US, I broke my arm playing football, soccer. You people. Anyway, yeah. So I mean, I just broke it, like I broke my hand. That was $32,000.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah.
$32,000 for broken arm.
So you just proved something for me. And some our listeners have heard me talk about this, but anybody who's called bullshit on me for this, you just proved my point. So
Mhm.
in university, I'm a graduate of the University of Arizona. My senior thesis was on global healthcare reform. I studied every healthcare system in the world. I did it for the president of the hospital at that time, the university hospital, and he was the professor, and it was a 300-page dissertation, and we studied every healthcare system in the world. And what the correlation we drew, I was in my dissertation, was that there is a direct correlation where the countries that have more parties, yes, they eventually lean left or right, but more parties that have a voice, right? In the US, we have 20 parties, but they don't all get a voice. You basically have Democrat, Republican, and maybe independent. That's it. You don't really see that many parties represented in parliament. Here, what you're saying is you get to vote multiple times for multiple people at different, with this person for this party, this person for that party, because they all have a voice in the parliamentary level. Then from there, at the presidential level or at the federal level, they break left or right depending on the policies. That's so far pretty accurate.
Yeah, that's perfect.
So you've just proven that if a country can have more dominant parties, and I don't mean not left, not right, but more parties as a voice, again, it leads to more debate, which leads to a better healthcare system. As you said, surprisingly good. Sweden, surprisingly good. Some other countries, surprisingly good. I'm not talking about socialized medicine. I'm not talking about, before anybody jumps off on that bandwagon, I'm talking about simply the healthcare debate having more voices versus extreme right, extreme left.
Let me just clarify one small thing with that. not every party has a consult where they get to
Sure, of
pick the
course.
person.
But you have more
Sometimes
than two.
a party can say, "This is my candidate," and that's it, and there's no
But you still
discussion.
have more than two. You have more than two parties.
Exactly.
So how many
Yeah.
parties, like how many consults do you get to vote for if you had to guess?
I couldn't tell you.
More than
I really
5?
couldn't tell you. I want to say it was around or it has been around 3 or 5 this year, something like that.
Okay.
I
So
will I
the
will tell you that I don't vote on every one
Sure.
because not that voting's not important, but sometimes it's just not up to me. It's not
Right.
my if I don't enjoy what that party represents, if I don't agree with what that party represents, I don't believe it's correct for me to even intercede and say this should be your candidate
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
this person has less odds. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So it's not
100%.
always like that.
This is exactly right though. Yeah.
But as far as healthcare goes, I mean, really, Colombia has a great healthcare system.
Yeah.
Um,
Does it matter what level of the
it's not immediate. It
No,
does have its flaws,
sure.
but you will get your turn. We do have the government will end up taking care of you. Sometimes it's sooner rather than later. We do have other insurance plans where you do pay a premium, and that's essentially like the Disney Fast Pass
Yep. Yep, yep, of course. Well,
type situation.
separate debate for or separate conversation for a separate day is a debate that I had with a county commissioner where I live talking about fixing healthcare and just how out of touch this person was. Because what we were talking about is something similar to what you're saying. You can buy like a Disney Fast Pass. So it's
Mhm.
not to say that you can't upgrade your plan. If you got the money to do it, by all means, upgrade your plan. You have a choice in terms of doing it, but it's there. So separate conversation, but I had to bring that in because the politics of it actually plays a part in that deliverable, which I thought was really interesting. So that part is there. Okay, but the political dynamics, the relationship between local leadership and the national government. When your dad was mayor, you talked to me a lot and it was public knowledge, but the conversation or the disagreements that he would have with the country's president at that time, the
Yeah.
disagreements they would have on the federal level based on what they were deciding and based on what he was needing. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So when he first he got elected in I want to say it was October of 2019, and his run started on the very first of January of 2020.
Perfect
Uh
timing.
yeah. So he did January, he did February, and then March. March is a huge month here in Cartagena in particular. That's where we have the film festivals and these literature conferences and all these important, aristocrats come to Cartagena. And there was this thing that people were getting sick. This COVID thing was going on. And my father said, all right, I'm shutting down the city. This was, I want to say it was the 14th of March. And he told the president, my dad told the president at that time, it was Duque. He's like, I'm shutting down the city. And he says, if you shut down the city, I will arrest you. You're going to get in trouble. You're gonna, all this other stuff. Sure enough, he shut down the city. And then all the aristocrats that were in Cartagena, they were coming in for their plays and symphonies and whatever. They all got pissy. Everybody's like, we're all going to sue your dad. Yeah,
Good luck
because
with that.
nobody knew what was coming. Yeah. So eventually shut down. And then like 15 days later, when the whole country shut down, it's like, thankfully we have good leaders like the president who told William Dow to shut Cartagena in spite of. So that did not start for a good relationship.
No, your dad
Um,
would talk about you would talk me and you would talk to me and say, I think at one point you were thinking about running for office at one point too, if I'm not mistaken. They were talking to
so
you
no,
about it.
I was thinking about city council
Yeah,
at one point, and it's not about the position, it's not about the job. It's a calling to serve.
yeah, that's right.
Is
That's right.
is
That's right.
is how I see it. You know,
100%.
it's a calling. It's a calling to do better. It's a calling
Right.
to contribute. I believe you can get all of that, but it's not something that I'm going to end up getting into. Unfortunately, it's politics is just it's not nice. It's not for good people.
And I agree with you. I agree with you.
It's not for
It
good
it's not
people,
it's not
and it
it's
turns
a dirt it's a dirty game, and it
yeah.
wasn't always like that. It's not just in Colombia, worldwide. Look at
Yeah.
us. I watched a debate in Canada. Actually, this
Mm.
morning, it was a recent debate where uh, a minister, a local minister, was being questioned on his compensation. This is a public servant whose compensation in Canada was almost $1 million a year.
What?
A public servant, between bonus and whatnot, it was almost $1 million a year was the compensation. I forget at this morning I saw where it was. It drew my attention, not because of the compensation, but because what we're talking about, the misunderstanding about Colombia, it goes back to that same thing, that whether you're in Canada, the US, Europe, this idea that our political system is just so much better than what's in Colombia just doesn't hold water, because those conversations are there. The fact that your dad was able to disagree, the fact that you were thinking about going to city council, the fact that your dad was able to sit on social media every Sunday and call
Mhm.
out every single politician or minister or head of a utility and how much money they took is huge. And what I think it was even that one where he called out the head of the utility company, the electric company, and the power went out for 2 hours.
Yeah.
There was that too. That was huge. That was something that I think is there, but it speaks to the fact that Colombia doesn't get a fair shake when it comes to the politics. All we see is what the media wants to show, which is how it's basically programmed out there. When you hear what you're saying, which is what I know to be true as well, because I've seen it firsthand, is the fact that, yeah, look, it's a dirty game, but you do have different steps in place. You have an engaged voter public. You have steps to be able to, yes, let the party swing left to right, let the election office swing left to right. It's not somebody in power for 40 years. You have
Yeah.
somebody, you have term limits, you have everything that's there. The stuff that democracies all over the world deal with and struggle with, you are also struggling with. But the stuff they get right, you are also getting right. And then there's some stuff that they don't get right that you do get right. Colombia does get right. I think that's a huge part of it in terms of. So let me ask you this. Let's talk about, and you know how much I love Colombia. You know how much I this is basically for me. Colombia is special for me. It's the one place that I will never stop regretting that my father never got to see. He was planning on coming to Colombia. He was planning to come because he
I
wanted
know.
to see what.
I remember talking to him.
Man, we were ready. It was all ready for him and my mother to come and visit. It was all set, and then what happened to him. But it was my biggest regret is he didn't get to come and see it. He saw everywhere else, but this was the one place that I wanted him to see. So with that in mind, I want to actually say, where in the country are things improving?
Okay. So I'm going to start off just by saying its reputation, that
Mhm,
mindset, the
mhm.
mindset of Colombia, the country with the drugs is really now the country with the culture, with the beauty. I really do consider this to be one of the most beautiful countries in the world.
I agree with you fully.
I'm bi I'm biased, of course, but it really is changing that mindset that we're getting.
Mhm.
Um, where I'll give you an example of so I wear a lot of hats. I start working with you, of course, because of my rum and chocolate tastings. And now I have a program where I go work with the farmers that used to grow coca the coca leaf to make cocaines, and now they grow cacao to make chocolate. I worked with them directly, and I see the impact and how the life have changed. The living in fear with this product that they get caught with and lose everything, making the drugs, now to make chocolate and get paid a very fair price for the work. So that's something pretty cool. The fact that eyes are on Colombia, you know,
Yeah,
people are kind of
100%.
seeing what we're doing, I think is very cool. That's one of the many great ways that the country has changed. The fact that we have now more routes, the fact that there is good things that are known. So ultimately, what has the most changed in Colombia? Yeah, there's infrastructure, there's corruption, there's poverty, but there's something very beautiful about just being known that we do have some good things here, and everything else will start slowly but surely getting better.
Well,
Unfortunately, it's a
let's
lot slower than I'd like.
yeah, but
Politics is always going to be a massive issue. That's gonna kind of hurt poverty up to some levels, but
Sure,
slowly but
sure.
surely it will be getting better.
Well, let's talk about your restaurant. Let's talk about the cacao because you've got the best chocolate in town. I know that for a fact. But let's talk about the restaurant, the chocolate tasting, the ice cream tasting, the hot sauce tasting. Let's talk about that for a second because yeah, when I first met you, it was chocolate and rum or rum tasting and chocolate, but then it was during the pandemic you started building all these other things and I think
Yeah.
you're the best example or one of the best examples of what this looks like, right? So as we talk about what Colombia gets right, why it's so misunderstood, here's what's being missed. Right. I mean, I told you I was in Medellin in November, back in Medellin. I'll be seeing you again later on this year. And it is the most misunderstood country because of the reputation.
Yeah.
And I say this because take what happened in Puerto Vallarta in Mexico. Take what happens every day in a place like Chicago or cities like New York. Imagine that happened at that level in Colombia. The country would be crucified. It
Oh
wouldn't
yeah.
just move on. The public would just, the international media would crucify the country. But this is double standard. However, your setup is the best example because what's not being talked about is entrepreneurship
Mhm.
is this. I remember you telling me during the pandemic there were 70, how many restaurants in Cartagena alone that closed during the pandemic? It was some
Oh
crazy
God.
number. It was
I mean, it was at least 100 restaurants that had to end up
right.
closing down.
Right. And now they're opening up everywhere. There's new ones opening up, new levels of entrepreneurship. You're the prime example. So talk to us
Yeah.
about what you did, how you expanded your experiences. Talk to us about some of the things that you're doing.
Okay.
Again, we talked about the rum behind you, but what else?
Well, so obviously I started kind of thinking as far as what Colombia is known for. And yeah, my answer was drugs. So I really just kind of needed to look a little further than that, you know, I just kind of get oriented. So I started with the rum. Colombia has some of the most beautiful, wonderful, well-regarded rum in the world. But they're small lots. They're small lots, and they don't have, millions of dollars of budget like Johnny Walker, etc. So let's get to know this stuff. Rum, of course, is made from sugar cane. And as sugar cane ages, is a cooking process. And when it cooks, it turns into caramel. So this is essentially caramel and chocolate. So it's like the adult version of a Snickers bar, is what I always like to tell people. But as rum started getting better, I needed to find better chocolate to go with these rums to be able to pair these.
Sure.
So I would try chocolate from different regions with certain rums, and sometimes they'd be okay, sometimes not so much. And that's kind of where I was prior to pandemic. Now, when pandemic hit, I had to close my shop down. In my shop, I
Well,
sold these rums, I sold chocolates, and they turned off the air conditioning. I'm not sure if you know this, but Cartagena is hot.
yeah.
So all that chocolate, thousands and thousands of dollars worth of chocolate, just all completely melted. Where the
Mhm.
whole bar just kind of, ended up like this smush at the bottom. So of course I cried a little bit. I drank some more of my beer that was going bad. Then I picked myself up and I started,
You called me and we talked about it.
yeah, 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 yeah. And then I retempered it and started making these little truffles. And that started selling well, so I wouldn't lose all that. Then I started making bonbons, and that sold well. And then I was buying more chocolate. And then I realized that the quality wasn't up to par. So as I kept going because at that point we were still delivering groceries to many different families all over Colombia, I kept seeing the cacao trees. And that's kind of where it started kind of getting that mindset of how much do you make from this? And we were noticing that they were making peanuts really for what it's worth. And that's where slowly we started doing these programs to where we would start purchasing their cacao, particularly in the areas where they're used to growing coca leaf. So
Mhm.
based on that, I kind of started getting my hands in there. This was about 6 years ago. Then late 2020, I made my first little bit of chocolate, and then it just kind of kept growing, and I got better and better. And now I work directly with the farmers and making some of the best chocolate that this country has seen.
And I've
Um,
tasted
and
it.
it,
It's incredible.
yeah, and at the same time, we've been able to help so many people, and we have these beautiful programs. I don't have these on all the farms, but the price of the cacao, where they used to make like $2, and now they're getting upwards or up to $18. You'd be
Wow.
14 to $18. So it's a massive change, massive life change for these. But here's where it gets tricky. There's quite a few things that they have to do to get that maximum price. So they have to have all their safety equipment,
Hmm.
because before there used to be accidents, bone fingers, etc. No underage people working on the farms, or no one under 16. And they have to do the proper fermenting and toasting, drying, etc. But where it gets interesting is to get those extra $4, the maximum that you can. It depends on the farmer's children's GPA. So according to what their kids' grades are, is what I would pay them for the cacao. So
Oh,
that was this massive incentive to make sure that the kids are not working in the farms like they usually do, and that they're hitting the books. And now, I mean, we have a kid that not only is he the first one to graduate from high school, but he's the first one to be in college.
I love this. I
Um,
love this.
and
Wow.
we were a little part of that.
That's
So it's very, very cool. And that's a very cool feeling. I'm only
well,
doing that with a few farms. I'd love to do it with a few more, but it takes a lot of work to get to these farms.
yeah, yeah, I believe it. You and I are going to talk about that offline because I think that's something really cool. I'm not surprised, obviously.
It's awesome. It's
Yeah.
badass.
Well, and
I
this
would say that's one of the coolest things I've done.
and that's actually to me, this was something that I was going to ask you, but I would say that those kinds of ideas, those kinds of initiatives, that's where it gives me optimism, right? It gives me optimism
Mhm,
about the future. That the country is actually continuing to emerge, not degrade. That
mhm.
we're seeing you're seeing it heading in the right path. Yeah, there's dark days and bright days, but you're heading in the right path. And I think that's huge. The word resilience comes to mind. You and I talked about this during the pandemic. I saw Colombia come together like no other country in the world. I saw it come together like nothing I've ever seen, where it's just literally it was just everybody converging into one, helping each other, right? I'm talking about the people, not the government, but the people all coming
Yes.
together. I mean, your dad loaned you and by extension to us as well, the naval armada. You and I
Yeah.
were on a naval ship delivering 85,000 water, and my son using the part of the Navy to deliver shoes to people that needed them. This country came together in a way that honestly needs to be replicated. The world needs more of that.
It was beautiful. It
And
was
it's
it was beautiful. It's something. It's a memory that I still kind of like. One of those where like I did that.
yeah, exactly. And I can't stop talking about what you did and the fact that we played a small part in it and that it was
Oh, you guys played a huge part of it. I
I
know,
was following
no,
your lead, but
no, just like in multiple ways. Of course, financial. I mean, the financial support from the Big Five was just huge. The financial support from the travel community that says, because I think we did something like this, the podcast where we delivered groceries and
we
toys,
were
etc., live, and lots of people got to see that. That was really cool. Just the
yeah.
advice that the one-on-ones that we had was just wonderful.
Oh,
The
it
amount
was
of focus, really, it's stuff that you can accomplish when you focus and when you have those set minds, and you have your priorities straight as far as what
right.
needs are. And sometimes needs, are beyond what you need. Needs is like
Correct.
what are the global needs.
Well,
So that
and
was cool.
especially right now with I would like to say that you and I captured lightning in a bottle because of just we again, I told you, I don't know really that many people, if anybody, that sees the world the same way I do, like you. I oftentimes I talk to you, I feel like we're cut from the same cloth. I think we are. I think so there's elements that are there. And the world needs more of that, right? The world needs more of that. But as you said it best, what are the needs, right? Not my needs, our needs. And that doesn't mean going and donate. That means sitting back and actually focusing on especially you look at what's happening in the world right now, unrest to whatnot, you name it, right? But what does the world actually need? In that moment, you were focusing. And now, because of that focus, there are farmers who are benefiting and actually getting fair pay for cacao. There are kids graduating, as you said, going through and their first one coming through school, education, become part of it. You're literally raising the bar in terms of what it should be, and it's one where I think I like to believe that what we figured out is that whatever was happening at that moment, just like right now, is temporary. And what ends up becoming permanent, or more permanent, less temporary, is the stuff we put in place during those times when we figure out that my need is not as important as our need. And I think Colombia as a country, and you were the poster for this, but Colombia as a country really exemplifies that. And it gets lost in the media all the time. It gets lost because they don't talk about that. There's that reputation. There's this. It's almost like everybody's like, oh, no, no, this country does this. But if you stop and look at the collateral beauty that's actually occurring, and you look at what's happening around us, there is this collective optimism because people are focused. People like you and me, other people around you who understand that, okay, I want this, right? There, there's not a mass exodus from Colombia. There's people who are believe in what the country is going to be and is heading towards, but they're remaining focused in terms of. So I'll close with this.
I mean, like
If you could
Colombia
s-
is its people,
It is people,
you know?
exactly. So exactly, I'll close with this. If you could say one thing to somebody who's thinking about visiting Colombia, what would you say to them?
Run. Run there. Don't walk. It's just give yourself a chance. You'll be
Mhm.
surprised.
That's right.
I
You'd be
mean,
surprised.
it's the main thing. Just come. I mean, heck, even not thinking about the whole Cartagena. If you read Cartagena on paper, it's an old city on the beach. If you come here, you really do, as you walk, get wrapped up in its culture and its sounds, and the light is just a little bit different, and the food is vibrant, and the music just sounds a little tingly. But just come and let yourself be surprised.
On that note, thanks for watching, everybody. Take care. And by the way, you know what, guys, like button, subscribe button, hit that bell notification. Make sure if you like what you heard here, make sure you click on that so you hear more of it. Leave a comment below, but get engaged. And as Abraham said, just come, just let yourself go. You'll be surprised. Thanks again, brother. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to The Sustainable Voice. If you have a success story of your own, please reach out and share it with us. Would love to hear from you. See you next time.